This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended to replace professional medical advice or be a substitute for therapy. Please contact a mental health professional as needed. If you are in need of urgent or emergency health care, please contact your mental health provider, call 911, or go to your nearest emergency room. The information presented does not reflect the opinions of those with whom we may be affiliated as employees, consultants, or colleagues, past and present.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Slightly Sane. We are your hosts, Kristie and Laura, giving you just enough to keep it together this week. Hello again.
Good morning. Ho, ho, ho.
Oh my gosh, here we go.
We are full in the holiday season. So we've been talking a lot about just expectations for the season, giving yourself a little bit of a break. But I got to tell you, the travel season is the worst of the year. We all know that, right? Like getting to places is crazy. And so I had to look up because I traveled for the first time this year for Thanksgiving. I'm traveling for Christmas. So it's twice for me. JetBlue is going to love me.
Wow.
But AAA estimated that 79.86 million people traveled for Thanksgiving. That's a lot of people who are trying to get to get someplace at the same exact time.
That's a lot of people hoping their luggage arrives on time and their plane arrives on time. That's
Absolutely.
A lot of expectations there in the travel part.
Absolutely. So one of the things, being the observer that I am, is as I was going through this whole travel process, it made me think of just travel in general. Holidays, of course, but travel in general, particularly air travel, and what I think they get wrong. And how, in my opinion, as a travel expert, of course, I'm saying that sarcastically, how I think that they should change things. So for you, what is the worst thing about air travel?
That part that I just said, there's so many ways it could go wrong, and it makes me a nervous wreck because of the weather. But how do you control the weather?
Exactly. So you're out of control with the weather.
Like everything could be on time, and then the weather happens, and then it's a cascade.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's why they say, I guess, take the first flight, because at least at the first flight, it's not a cascade of the 20 flights ahead of that.
Which I usually do, by the way. I usually take like the 6 a.m. flight, and this time I threw all my rules out the window.
So when did you fly out?
So I flew out. I flew out on a Sunday. I flew out on a Sunday before Thanksgiving, which, let me see if I go a few days early, if it's better. And I did like a later flight, like an 11 or 2 or something like that. It was fine. Going home, I went 2 days after Thanksgiving. I think I went on Saturday. And again, I did like an afternoon flight. That was also fine. And let me just tell you, people, I flew into JFK, which is one of the busiest airports in the country. And I have to give props because they're undergoing huge construction, and they did an amazing job. Really, they really did. Even jet blows. I mean, really, sometimes it usually does.
Was that a Freudian?
It was a Freudian. It was a Freudian because I lost my luggage at one point. But everything got where it was supposed to go, and they did a fantastic job. But as I was observing things, I'm like, none of this is really efficient. And that's really what the airlines are supposed to be about, right? Theoretically?
Yeah, people are counting on them.
Right, but also the more efficient they are, the more money they will make. Correct?
I guess when you put it that way.
Right? That's why the turnaround time when the other people come off the flight to when you get on the flight, they only give them like 25 minutes to like clean up the flight, to turn over the flight before the new people get on.
Well, that's why, speaking of, we do more of the job. We are doing more and more of the job than they are.
Thank you.
They have us start cleaning up the trash before we get off.
Thank you.
They have us now, I think part of their reasoning that they say why we're managing our own bags is because we're quicker than they are.
Oh, please. Come on.
I don't buy that at all, which is where you see people go to blows, and then now American Airlines, God bless them. I don't know if it's a bluff or if it's true. If anybody has made that thing ding obnoxiously and call people out because you're trying to board earlier than you're supposed to board so you can get that nice overhead space, I don't know if it's just a bluff that they said now their technology will this obnoxious sound if you try to board too early. But that's the reason why people are so anxiously standing like bees waiting to swarm the plane, is because everybody wants to make sure their bag gets on.
So let's talk a little bit about that. That is my first pet peeve. The airlines have this backwards, completely backwards. If you want things to run efficiently, right, you should be charging people to bring their bags on the plane. And you should be not charging people to check their luggage, correct? Because what we do
That's what I think.
We charge people normally to penalize them for doing things that slow down the process or make things a pain in the butt for the companies. So, hello, checking the bags streamlines the entire thing. You do not have to wait behind someone who is fidgeting around trying to find like the right place for their bag. It holds up the line, and then you have the pilots or whoever saying, if we want an on-time departure, you got to put your bags up, and then you're going to have like anxious elderly people who have a hard time lifting, who are then going to be like all freaked out that they're holding up the line. So why are we doing it this way?
That was if I misunderstood it, call me out, but my understanding of it was they felt that doing it that way was faster than them doing it.
It makes absolutely no sense.
It doesn't make any sense to me.
Because you got these big burly men and women who just load that stuff on a cart, ride the little buggy, right? And then just dump it. They don't even have to lift it on the plane. They put it just on that little, what's that thing, elevator thing for luggage. And then it just goes up into the plane. Bye-bye. Seems very easy for me.
I believe so. I am 100% behind you on that one. It never made sense to me. Mm-hmm. But that's exactly what happens. And then you have people who argue about the space underneath the seat.
I haven't seen that recently because they're so busy arguing about what's above. And the person who gets on and then has to put their bag all the way in the back, now they're going to slow up the line because to get their bag when they're getting off the plane, they have to walk to
backwards.
The back of the plane and get their bag. Yeah. This makes absolutely no sense to me. So that was the first thing that I noticed where I was like, listen, JetBlue, you got to change this. Be a leader, not a follower.
I thought JetBlue was supposed to be top tier when it first came out.
I think when it first came out, it really was. I mean, they're doing new planes and things like that, but they're, in my opinion, not that anyone really cares, but in my opinion, they've dropped in my estimation over the past several years.
Yeah.
I still fly them because, they go to where I need to go, but I'm not as happy with them as I was before.
So what's the second pet peeve?
Second pet peeve, I have so many of them. Okay, the wheelchair brigade.
Oh.
I do not mind wheelchairs. People need wheelchairs. They have that set up properly, right? Allow the extra time at the beginning for people with wheelchairs to get on first. And then when the flight lands, the wheelchair people get off last because it's harder to maneuver the wheelchairs. Let's get off everybody else, and then we can deal with the people who are in the wheelchairs. What I don't understand, and going to our last episode, this might be Jesus at work, is people get miraculously cured on the plane. They come on with a wheelchair, and then all of a sudden they can walk off.
It's amazing what happens at 10,000 feet. You just lose all... I mean, I don't know why we don't just launch people up into the air every time they have a medical condition. Right.
And again, no criticism against people who really need the wheelchair, right?
100%. We're saying the people that ruin it for the people who legitimately have something.
Exactly.
That's what we're talking about.
Because literally, if you need a wheelchair to get to the plane, you think the walk is any shorter to go to baggage claim? Right? So, I mean, you can't say, I need it because I can't walk that far. If you're going to Atlanta or one of the other airports where you need to even get on a shuttle to get your bags, So that was the other thing that I noticed that really kind of, irked me a little bit is I'm not going to assume that people are lying, but there's definitely something a little shady going on. And that, listen, talking about efficiency, we're going to slow things down a little bit. You have 20 wheelchairs getting on and 5 getting off.
And on top of that, I felt bad. One flight, speaking of Atlanta, we landed on one, which anybody who flies through Atlanta, if you fly at a PBI, you most often go through Atlanta to get your connection, at least where we fly. We literally landed at the end of, F or something, and we had to make it all the way to A to
get... In what, like 5 minutes,
Oh, my
right?
gosh, it was ridiculous. And I went selfish. I literally was like climbing, like, what is that, Bugs Bunny? Excuse me, pardon me. I mean, like, I just started as soon as I could. When I heard the ding, I was catapulting over people, trying to make sure that one of us from our family got to the gate in time, and then begged and pleaded for the rest of us to be able to get on. But I don't know, again, in all fairness, but sometimes I see people let the people who have a connection flight go.
I would let someone go first. Yeah, people have said to me, listen, I got to get a connection. Sure, go right ahead.
Absolutely.
Go right ahead.
But then some people just don't care, and they stand up and they clog.
Exactly.
And then nobody can move. So I knew I had to move before everybody stood up, because other than I was screwed at that point. We were all screwed.
But wait, from a systemic perspective, did your flight arrive late?
It took off late. There was a problem with the first plane. And that's the reason why the first plane took off late, because they had to look at a blade in the engine. Great, that always helps, right? Because I love flying as it is. But I get my ass on that plane because I'm not going to stop life because I don't like flying. So that flight made everybody that was connecting through Atlanta late. For some reason, we had on that flight, because I have traveling anxiety where I worry about the time. And I made sure that we buffered in like 2.5 hours.
There you go.
In Atlanta. Thank God we did, because we were one of the few that actually, and honestly, they did us a solid getting us on that connection.
Well, usually if they know that it's their fault, they'll do whatever they can. But like I was saying, from a systemic perspective, the company or whoever is doing the schedules should build in that buffer. You can't have, especially when you're going into one of those big airports, you cannot have 10 minutes to get from one flight to another. It's just completely unrealistic.
And that's what I can't figure out. Some flights, like when I fly to Pittsburgh to see the Yinzers, I land on this side, my flight is right there. Then you have a situation like this. We were coming over from California. Literally couldn't find a corner. Not only that, but the jetway or whatever, where, they found the longest one they possibly could. I mean, I thought we were on candid camera or something. I thought it was one giant joke that we were on camera somewhere, because I'm like, this is ridiculous. But I don't know if that was just where maybe the plane was supposed to, if it had been on time, land somewhere else. I don't know if it's because we were late. It landed wherever we could get a place.
Oh, a gate, right, wherever they had an open gate.
And that's the logistical stuff I think that maybe the airlines in their defense have to deal with, is maybe it did make sense at first, but because our plane had an issue and we were flying out of John Wayne Airport, there's not a plane. It's your plane or no plane.
What
There's
airline
2
were you
flights out of
flying?
it. Delta. We always fly Delta.
Okay, so here is what is interesting. I don't know if Delta does this, but on JetBlue, you can go online or on your app or whatever and look, where's my plane coming from?
They do that.
Okay. So what got me scared is when I was flying home from Thanksgiving is it says, sorry, we can't locate where your plane is.
We lost it. Sorry.
Yeah, we have bad news for you. We can't find your plane. So I went to the airport not exactly knowing if I was going to take off or not. So again, expectations. I went in there with the idea that, all right, I may have to go back to my parents' house for the night because maybe I won't have a plane. So going into it that way. I have to tell you, though, Palm Beach International was just recently listed as one of the best airports in the country.
Yeah, thanks for whoever did that. Appreciate you.
Mm-hmm. I know.
Can't wait to see all the
people
flying in and out.
But let's talk about USA Today did a little survey. What are the most annoying habits of people? Putting their bags on the seat next to them. I'm guilty of that. I am guilty of that.
Well, if you're on Southwest, you got to mark that seat.
Oh, yeah.
Which I think they might have
But I
just
mean in the
changed
waiting
it.
room. In the waiting room.
Oh, when you're
Yeah.
waiting. I
don't
was
want
going to say
anyone
people
sitting
mark their
next to me.
seat, so
I
they
don't
have
want
the
people
seat.
sitting next to me. Reclining the seat without asking, I don't think you have to ask. Do you have to ask?
Why on earth do you have to ask someone to recline the seat?
It's part of what's like, it's the equipment.
And it's fair. Unless you pick the one that's against the exit, it doesn't recline.
Exactly. Not putting your cell on airplane mode, which I don't know what that means because I never put my cell on airplane mode.
It's supposed to not interact with the signal that they use.
Oops. Sorry. Okay. And
Could be a lie. I don't know.
gas. Passing gas. Oh. So this comes into the next pet peeve I have. I have no problem with emotional support animals. This was a legit emotional support animal sitting next to me with a woman sitting on the lap. No problem. Dog was great. Like dogs, not a problem. The dog had the worst bad breath ever, and was passing some really doggy flatulence the entire flight. And I don't know if they really do have the HEPA filters that they said that they installed during COVID, because it wasn't filtering anything out of this cabin. I can tell you that right now. And so it got me thinking just about support animals in general, which I have no problem with. But the woman 2 seats behind had a cat. And I'm really allergic to cats. So what happens, and I don't have an answer for this because I really don't know, maybe someone who's listening knows, what would happen if an emotional support cat was sitting on the lap of the person next to me, because the dog was on the lap, right? It wasn't in a carrier, and I'm allergic to cats. What do you do?
Well, somebody would have to move.
Well, you know how happy people are about that.
Right?
Right?
I don't know what else could. What could
I
you
don't
do?
know. You would have to ask if someone would please move. But on these flights where, they announce all the time, we have a completely packed flight, people, right? Yeah. So, I mean, I was thinking about that too. What do I do?
I've seen people switch for kids. I don't know
Yeah.
if they would switch for the same situation. Because we were traveling, and they were more than willing to switch.
Right. And I don't mind if it's a legit support animal, but we know what's been going on with support animals.
Which is where they were supposed to change it, that you have to have which is why I don't do those evaluations anymore.
I don't either.
You have to have a legit documented with the ADA disability.
Mm-hmm. And this woman clearly did. The dog was wearing the orange vest. It was clearly identified as, maybe it was for seizures. I don't know exactly what it was, but it was clear that this was a legit animal. However, you can't control that. It's an enclosed space. People have biological things happen, including dogs, but it was really uncomfortable.
There was one that had and I'm a big dog fan. There was one that had a really big dog. Dog was great too, but I thought about that too. And they kept the dog across the front. I don't know if they asked the two people that were also in the aisle with them, like, is this okay if my dog just lays on the ground the whole time in front of us? I don't even know what the exchange was. I didn't even know the dog was there most of the time, and then I went to the bathroom and saw it. So I don't know what you do in that too if it's a big dog. I mean, you're talking about a dog that was on the lap.
Right. Right.
You can't do that with a big dog.
It was a fairly decent sized dog, but she fitted on the lap. She was very respectful too, I have to say. She was a role model for being a passenger, because if the dog nudged me, she'd go, I'm so sorry. And I said, no, not a problem. No, it's fine. But it also led me to the thought of hygiene on a plane. Could you shower before you get on a plane? Please? Could you, what happened during COVID? People are now sneezing. I'm just going to let my sneeze fly. Don't even bother covering. And, hello, lice on airplanes now?
Wait, what?
Now you got to worry about the headrest?
Oh, Delta's is leather.
Am I telling you a story about this? So I believe it is Jason Biggs' wife.
Okay.
Was he from American Pie? Was
Yes.
just on a flight, And she put it on Instagram, I believe, so I'm not saying anything that's secret, with a plastic bag on her head, taking a flight, and her own daughter, I think it was, wouldn't sit anywhere near her. My head has been itching. I thought it was perimenopause or something. It turns out I have lice.
She had the lice?
She had the lice on an airplane, announcing it to the entire world. And it's not the first situation I've heard of people seeing somebody else on a plane, the head against the headrest, and the person's got active head lice.
I don't know. You could go down this rabbit hole. It's like the sickness part. I've seen people who clearly are sick and are sneezing and coughing and should not be on the plane. Where's the line where you say, no, maybe I shouldn't get everybody else sick?
I know. Again, it's a pet peeve of mine. Can we control it? Probably not. She didn't know she had head lice. Should she know? I don't know. I never heard itching your head is a perimenopausal thing. However, whatever.
What about people take their shoes off? I've heard about that one.
Listen,
and then they put their feet up in their socks on the nook between the window and the...
Listen, this is not your living room. If it's your living room, you can do whatever you want. Theoretically, what I think you are paying for is this space here and this space here. Do not extend beyond the space. Don't put your stinky feet in someone else's face. Like, isn't that common? Like, where's common consideration?
Don't even get me started on talk about rabbit holes. Common courtesy and consideration and awareness of,
especially during the holiday season, people. It's saying happy holidays. Think about your neighbor, and then you have stinky feet like right over there.
I agree. I don't know where I am entitled to do this, and that's my space, and you deal with it. I don't know but in general, the disrespect of people has just gotten out of control.
And now we see why there are more and more fights on airlines, because obviously it's a stress to even get there. If you check your bags, again, JetBlue did a great job. My bags were checked, everything was good. But usually there's a really big line, then going through security with the people yelling at you, get your bag on there, take off your cell phone, your jacket, you put it in, like you're freaking out. By the time you get on the plane, your nerves are absolutely rattled, and I think you're like, here.
I'm glad to hear that I'm not the only one who literally just feels like, wow, I gotta just, when my ass hits the seat, I actually start to diffuse a little bit, but I'm just an anxious mess from the time I get out of the car through that whole process. And I'm part of, not Clear.
TSA.
Thank you.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
And so they couldn't make it easier with that, honestly. You really just walk in. And especially at our airport, you really just walk in. It couldn't be a better experience, but even then, it's just people are a gamble. Mm-hmm. You don't know what's going to happen with them. And it sucks because I remember that I never flew in this time, but I'm sure it's correct that there used to be a time when the flight was part of the vacation.
Yes, absolutely. I used to look forward to flying. I'm like, this is fun.
This is great. You would get a nice meal, I guess. Everybody was dressed nice. It was a wonderful thing to be a pilot and a flight attendant, stewardess, Now it's just...
We're not going to have too much time to talk about the food, but listen, don't throw me a bag of chips and a Coke and call it a day. And tell me that, first of all, I would never complain, but because I'm gluten-free, I'm not going to eat the snacks anyway. But I would rather have a $10 credit. I don't need the snack. For a 40-minute flight, I can manage without a snack for 40 minutes.
Well, they're getting, I think they were just being thrown many, many questions about all these unreasonable fees lately. That was also on the news. They're having to answer to the fact. And Delta was one of them. I can't remember if JetBlue was.
Probably. So I'm being a little cranky about all of this because I do fly a lot. But the last one that I have to say, and a tip for you, by the way, is I take my Dramamine as soon as they announce boarding. So by the time I take my Dramamine and get in my seat, it's kicked in. I got my little thing around my neck. I always get a window seat so I don't lean into somebody else. I got the window, and I'm out for a good hour. That's how to fly. But the last thing, please, 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 people, please, we're nervous, a lot of people, nervous flyers anyway. This is not the time as you're waiting to board the plane to educate your children on 9/11 and everything that happened that day. I will literally tell you that happened as I was waiting to board the flight home.
Are you kidding me?
And the kid was asking a zillion questions, smart kid, good questions, but we're all standing online and talking about how the hijackers did this and how they burst through the door and the people on the other flight that went down in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. And yeah.
That's like when one of the flights I took, I'm okay if there's no turbulence. I know some people like turbulence. No bueno. That's when I start to text, which I talked about the last time, right? If you say flight attendants get your jump seats, not everybody knows what that means. And that to a layman thinks weird. They're leaving, like it is go time, we're going, like the plane's going down. People, especially kids, this is what made me think of it. I'm not sure that they have a understanding of, can't you just say, take your seats?
Right.
Why do you have to say jump seat? Not everybody's seen Catch Me If You Can and knows what that means. So just use non-alarming terms that anybody could understand and it doesn't freak them out.
They don't have any other seat besides a jump seat. So why do you have to
That's what I'm saying. Why do you have to call it that? You know where they're going. So why do you have to call it a jump seat?
Well, I guess they're afraid that a flight attendant's going to sit on someone else's lap and some funny business is going to go on. I don't get it.
That's what I'm saying. That you just reminded me of that.
People are not using any judgment. And I'm sitting here holding back because I try not to be a rabble-rouser, but I'm like, I'm going to bring this up at some point with someone. So we're putting it out there. Do not talk about terrorism, 9/11, hijacking as you're waiting online to board a plane because everybody around looked really uncomfortable.
As they should have. Mm-hmm. Time and place, people.
So that was my biggest one. So those are, some of my pet peeves about travel. I hope everybody has like a smooth travel experience. Driving, they say can be more dangerous than flying. I'm not sure about that. I think your risk of bodily harm from another passenger getting pissed off at you is more probable on a plane than when you're driving with someone, just saying. I don't know. Maybe the train is good. But I've done the auto train once, and that's no fun either. So listen, there's just no good way to get around. But can we please, guys, please just have a little bit of patience and consideration. This isn't your private home. It's a public space. Leave the nose picking at home. We don't need to see it. Just be a little bit more considerate of everyone else around you.
I agree. 100%.
Right. So that's it for today, guys. So don't forget to check out the Slightly Sane podcast on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Please also leave us a rating on Apple. We would love to get your 5-star rating. Don't forget to reach out to us at slightlysanepodcast@gmail.com. I want to hear what you guys think about travel. Let us know what your pet peeves are as well. So peace out, guys.
Goodbye.